Welcome to Cigar Talk. I am super excited to be joined today by Michael Herklots from Ferio Tego. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Love it. So I've been able to watch Michael's career, not in a creepy way, but for many, many years. And one of the things that I've always admired about you, and actually in the very first Cigar Talk we ever did for YouTube, it was my colleague Alex and I talking about Ferio Tego with the birth of the brand. And so to have you here today is really, really great. But you've made that transition from retailer, just like me, to today, brand owner, blender. Can you talk a little bit about that transition from retail into blending?
It's a long process. I was fortunate enough very early on in my retail career to be exposed to factories. I became very friendly with the Quesada family very early in my career, and I would go down to the DR and spend time with their family just on my vacation. And so being exposed to it is different than being taught it, because it was just this sort of constant access to process. And, you know, credit where credit's due, the Quesadas were also incredibly generous and gracious with their time to let me be a part of that and kind of learn as we go. So that really started probably 2004, 2004, I started going down with some regularity. And then in my early part of my retail career at Davidoff, we also started working on some projects and blends exclusively for our store, which, if you put on your history hat, store exclusives back then really were not as common as they are today. And so we got to get very creative. Some with Quesada. I did some work with Manuel Inoa at La Aurora, and just playing around and creating blends. But what I appreciated about the process was when, you know, the more you know about something, the more you realize you don't know, right? I mean, that's crystal clear.
Sure.
And so the early days of blending, quote unquote, was not, you know, looking at a book of all these different leaves and primings and seeds and saying, let's put these together. It was much more of, let's try and create something that is like this. And then the experts go and do that. And then you taste and evaluate and say, well, maybe something like this or something like this. This is what's lacking. This is what I'd like to see. But what I appreciated about the process is when tweaks would be made, when I asked specifically what were the tweaks exactly so I could understand the cause and effect, the factories were always willing to share that. And so I got to see, you know, one leaf of this or changing from this leaf to this leaf caused this exact difference and change, was a very illuminating part of the process to really then start to understand that cause and effect, and also start to understand what my preferences and styles ultimately became. Very long answer to a very simple question. My apologies. But it was not I didn't go from retailer in 2020 to cigar maker in 2021.
Right.
And to help bridge that gap was, starting in 2011, the work I did for Nat Sherman had shared responsibility of both overseeing our retail operation as well as developing the blends and the wholesale part of the business.
I'm super jealous. I mean, I had that experience. I actually got to spend a day early in my career here at Georgetown Tobacco with Manolo Quesada, and had that exact same, I thought I knew my shit. And I got down there and I know nothing, absolutely nothing. So to be able to spend that time, especially with someone like him, is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think, you know, the older you get and the more experiences you have and the more you learn, the more you realize that the people who know the most are often the quietest.
Yeah.
And the people who self-evaluate themselves as experts are probably further back in the line than you might imagine.
Before retail, and even I think until today, drumming has been a part of you and your core. And I've seen it with Paul Gramerian with the guitar, with Avo with the piano. Can you touch a little bit on how you think music and your understanding of music has influenced how you blend?
Well, I think first there's the influence of music just in the way I live. And, you know, I guess people pursue music, let's say specifically for different reasons. But most, I have to believe, have a real deep-rooted passion for it. You know, it's not a subject, you know, like medicine that you would do because your father was a doctor and so you're a doctor following in the, you know, the dreams of your parents. Clearly, my parents did not
dream for you to be a
have
drummer?
a dream that I would be, nor a cigar maker for that matter. But when you're encouraged to pursue passion, there is a real there's a real sense of calling to pursue that particular discipline, as easy or as difficult or whatever it may be. And I've applied that same emotion to this. And it wasn't necessarily intentional, but I just found something, as in pursuit of music, I found something else that I really enjoyed. And as a guy with no hobbies, you know, enjoying cigars became a hobby when pursuing music became the profession. And so it just became my favorite thing to do when I wasn't working. And so then I just wanted to do it all the time. And it was a hobby also that I couldn't afford as a music student. And so what better way to keep yourself connected to something than to find a way to make a living at it? And so I got a part-time job in retail. That was May of 1999. And I've made money in the cigar business ever since.
Incredible.
Yeah. Now to blending, you asked how I apply it to blending. I'm a drummer, and specifically a jazz drummer. And so I have the ability to play other music, and I've probably played more songwriter and rock and theater and that kind of stuff than I have jazz in the last 20 years. But I apply a jazz mentality, a very deliberate, thoughtful, responsive approach to jazz. And so I think it's not necessarily the drumming influence as much as it's the jazz drumming influence, where it requires a high level of awareness of what's going on. And it also requires a lot of discipline to kind of stay out of sight, to provide rhythm that is supportive of others. But it really speaks to balance. I mean, you know right away if a drummer's overplaying, because it's so uncomfortably distracting. You know what I mean? Same with the bass player. Like, being a rhythm section is all about creating balance, either among the three of you or creating a foundation upon which the tenor player is going to do his thing and the trumpet player is going to do her thing. And you get a chance to solo once in a while, but you're really creating the environment to deliver the other instruments. And that's the way I blend. I mean, you've smoked enough of my stuff. You know, body is the most important thing. Body and texture over flavor. It's body and texture and mouthfeel, and creating that environment upon which the other flavors can then be transported onto the palate. So I take a very musician, artist, creative approach to creating blends.
I just love hearing you talk about it because, you know, I do smoke these cigars every day.
Thank you.
I talk about cigars every day. I will never be able to talk about them in the way that you do. And that musicianship and that philosophy is a difference between us. I don't have that at my core. And to hear the way you expound on it.
It would also be how you describe your favorite band. Like, your favorite music, even if we like exactly the same music, your relationship to it is different than my relationship to it. Because I look at it from a very technical, you know, it's difficult to enjoy something when you kind of know, when you know how the sausage is made, you don't eat a lot of sausage, you know? And I feel like that was certainly the case for me musically. It's also the case for me cigar-wise too. Like, you know, I've been around long enough the running joke last night was I'm the youngest old guy in the industry because I'm not that old at 44, but with 25 years served, it puts me in a very unique bucket. And you know, at this point, it's not just my sausage; it's kind of all. I know how sausage is made, all of them, all the flavors, all the kinds, all the countries, all the styles. And so, handing me a new cigar to try, I have a completely different approach, and sometimes it takes very deliberate focus to not try and intellectually smoke it, and to just try and consumerly enjoy it. It's tricky.
You touched on a little bit about emotion and music. So let's talk about Nat Sherman a little bit and this transition and the foundation of Ferio Tego. When we heard about the Townhouse closing, an iconic store in New York, for us, it's our 60th anniversary. I mean, that was really a gut punch for us sitting in Washington, D.C. I can't imagine how it was for you. But from that has come, I think, something absolutely beautiful and exciting and new. Can you touch on that a little bit?
I mean, isn't that life? You know, it's very easy when you are in the midst of things that feel negative to focus on why is this happening and woe is me and all this kind of stuff. But the faster you can get above it and look at what opportunities are coming out of this, the more that pessimism in the moment turns into optimism for the future. And certainly, you know, the almost 10 years I spent with Nat Sherman were awesome and exciting and fun, and we did great work. But just like any other death, it's beyond your control, and you need to deal with the reality of the situation. And so we had the opportunity to deal with it as it was occurring. We got to do it with dignity and grace. But we also had I had the opportunity to really start thinking ahead about, you know, what am I going to do next? And once again, being around as long as I have, you know, I've grown up with a lot of, you know, pretty important, successful people in this industry. And so being able to call my friends and say, you know, what do you think? What do you think? You know, what's available within your organization? Is there an opportunity for me? The resounding answer was, you know, if you think you can do it, now's the time to do it. Go out on your own. Like, yeah, well, we'd hire you. We'd find something for you. We'd love to have you, but this is the chance. You have what you need, I think. So if you're going to do it, this is the time to do it. And so and I looked outside of the industry too. I was really interested in seeing if I was capable of doing some other marketing or something else. Turns out not capable.
Oh, you're certainly capable.
Uncapable.
Capable.
Didn't go well. But it was fun to at least like even have the conversations, because I also realized that I can't work in the absence of passion. Like the idea of doing it was not a good one. So quickly back to industry, and then pretty quickly was, all right, let's do this. And the Ferio Tego idea was an idea that I had for a long time and just didn't know what I was going to do with it. And so that quickly became my North Star of Ferio Tego, 2 experiences, elegancia, generoso, that's it. And I was going to go bang on doors and figure out how to sell these 2 experiences. But it was during that time that it then became apparent that we may be able to make a play for Timeless and for Metropolitan and some of the other brands and blends. And, you know, that was very appealing because it was being able to author the work that we had done. And so we explored that. I got together with Brendan Scott, who was the former CFO. And so we had worked together for many years, building the business, growing the business, selling the business through the acquisition with Altria, then trying to sell our business, then ultimately closing the business. I mean, if we could do all that together, well, what the hell? Let's try this again. And so then we were able to, we acquired the brands, Metropolitan, Timeless, the Epica brands, and Cora. And then we got to work putting those under now this halo of Ferio Tego. And now we're literally on about to close year 3 and embark on year 4 in marketing.
So we've talked about blending and this creation of this brand. I think what would shock people is to realize just how much of this work comes from you. You're creating cigar blends, you're designing, you are on the road constantly engaging with customers, retailers, on the road, at events. We're having one here tonight. What aspect of the business do you find the most enjoyable? Because you have a lot to choose from.
It's really no different than music, because it's such an important process to create. But unless you record it or perform it, then the creation is worthless, you know? So then you have to record it, and you have to get it out for other people to experience, which is the equivalent of manufacturing and then distribution. So once you start selling records and you see people listening to it and enjoying your music, man, that's great. So then what's the next best thing? Then you go do it live. And you put on a show and you perform it for them, and you get the immediate response of their applause, and you stick around afterwards and hang out and have a drink, and you know, that direct engagement with people who love your work, that's the reason to be an artist, you know? And so I can't imagine not having the trifecta of those 3 things. And there's other people, I guess, that do it without the trifecta, but they just don't. Maybe they don't have the same artist approach. You know, they're just approaching it differently as a product. But when you grow up dreaming of writing music, performing with bands, recording in the studio, going on tour, I'm kind of doing all of those things, just differently. So I can't say that I love one more than another, because if one is missing, I feel like it's a circle that's not complete. You really need to keep all 3. Now, sometimes one takes priority over the other, you know. So you spend more time writing, then you go through a cycle of spending more time in the studio, then you go on a tour for a year. Well, if you're on tour for a year, then you're not recording and you're not writing, you're out performing. And so, you know, this last year has really been a heavy tour year for me, even the year before. But that's because we had so many great songs already written, you know, that now we're not writing albums, I'm writing songs. And so Suma, for example, what we're smoking right now is the latest song. And so now we're incorporating this song into the tour, and we continue on. Yep.
So that tour, which takes you I follow you on Instagram, it takes you everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
When you come into Georgetown Tobacco, what are your thoughts on this space?
Well,
as an arena for your performance.
Every store is different, just like every venue, right? You have a different vibe, a different feel, a different culture. Being around as long as I have, once again, I have an affection for the history of our industry. I do not believe that, you know, somehow this industry is splitting and it's old versus new. I think that's absolutely ridiculous, because this, like it or not, is old. And every new business that's in this world, retail or brand, exists because of the hard work that's happened in the years prior. And the reality is that road is smoother as a result of the work of generations that have come before. That's just a fact. Yeah. So if somehow you believe that you have stumbled onto this unique thing and have revolutionized it in a way that has completely changed the game, like, that's just not rooted in any level of reality at all. And so I think it's important to be in spaces that are examples of that history. And there are some stores that you walk in that are historically relevant, but are not current. And what I love about this store is it's both. That you have clearly a 60 years of legacy and history and contribution to industry, but you're not walking into a dark, dusty space, you know what I mean, with curmudgeon-y old people. You're
we may have a couple.
You're walking into a space that's well lit, that's well merchandised, that has current releases, and that balance of old world and new world is the industry. And so I love being here, and I appreciate all the support. You know, I mean, as a new brand, we require a story to be told, and we count on partners who believe in what we're doing and who are willing to invest their time and share our story. And you guys do that, and you've done it from the very beginning, and I'm so grateful for it.
I mean, these cigars are fantastic.
That helps.
They're fantastic. I mean, for us, one of the things I learned from David from the very first trade show I attended, which was in 1997, like you, I'm a young, old person in the business, just a little bit older, was that in many cases, it's really the people behind the product that's at the forefront and the most important thing. Because, you know, if you're a jerk, this could be the greatest cigar in the world. We're not going to sell it.
Right.
And you are an amazing, hardworking person who we want to support, who also, thankfully, makes phenomenal cigars. So it's that perfect marriage.
But you do need both.
You have to need.
You know, you can have great cigars that have no personality, meaning in the brand, not even a physical person. Yeah. And to your point, there's also really great cigars with, you know, unfortunate personalities, and it's a very small industry.
There's fewer of those. I mean, we've got amazing people, I think, in the business for the most part.
Again, that's what makes this space different. You walk in and you look at the cigars that you have, and clearly it is a range that is curated thoughtfully. Mm-hmm. This is not curated based on deals. It's not curated based on, you know, I mean, sure, all business is business, but it's curated with your customers in mind. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big believer in the money will come, but when you're prioritizing customers, it's just better money. When you're prioritizing margin, how can you be facing the that's like having your back to the customer instead of facing the customer. Yeah. And in retail or in any business, you have to face your customers, and that means your back is to the money. Mm-hmm. And you deal with that after.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. So what's next? I'm actually really excited because we have our trade shows coming up in April. I know there's going to be something in between now and then. What's next for Ferio Tego?
And this has been my mentality for more than a decade, I don't build our plans based around a business cycle.
Okay.
I think it puts really unfair expectations, sets unfair expectations to the industry and to us. Mm. And, you know, we've evolved into this culture of always having to release something new. And like, how do you build equity in something when you keep leapfrogging to the next new thing? And I just don't believe in that. You know, I mean, hits are hits because you've been playing them for 30 years and they're generationally beloved. And I want a portfolio of hits. I don't want a portfolio of, you know, just like
one-hit wonders.
Yeah, I can't do it. Yeah. And, you know, that's culturally, I mean, look at, you know, meme stocks and crypto and all this, you know, you have like the crypto thing, I think is the best analogy. And I don't know, I only know enough about crypto to know that I've lost everything I've ever put into crypto. Okay. But to learn the hard way of buying something that one day had a value and the next day has zero. Well, why did I buy it? If you've just abandoned it and everyone cashed out and now it's on to the next thing. And to me, we're not crypto, we're not meme, we are blue chip. We're building something that's going to have equity for the long term. Ferio Tego is a brand that has equity for the long term. And because we're only 3 years old, you know, what did you do at 3? I mean, I guess we were walking, you know, but we weren't driving. Yeah. You know, that's 13 years away from driving. 3 years in, I don't know what a brand's life cycle is, but let's call it 25, 30 years. That's marathon, right? 25, 30 miles. We're on mile 3. So how can I ask retailers and consumers to get behind us and support us if I keep changing the story that I hope that they tell? You can't count on that for your business. A consumer can't count on it when they walk in to shop and buy something. You know, I mean, our tolerance for risk, I think, is reduced as we get older. But certainly, you know, in times like we are in right now, things are expensive. And if you have $50 to go buy cigars for your weekend, you're going to want a sure thing. And so if I'm going to spend our time and money investing, why would I do that in something new that I have to convince you to buy again, when I can just keep doing what we're doing well and let it convince you to buy it again? So that's what's next.
You do have the mix of both worlds, though, right? I mean, we have Suma as a core line where we can really build on that. But then I understand with Elegancia and Generoso, it's more that approach of the wine, the vintage.
So a little bit of flexibility, but nevertheless, if you liked last year's Chardonnay, you're going to like this year's Chardonnay. You know, you're not releasing in the wine analogy, you're not going from 2018 Chardonnay to 2019 Cola. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
It's still Chardonnay from your place and your style. And so that's the approach of Elegancia and Generoso. It does give us a restart with each release, but it's still 2 SKUs. It's still the same package, and it's still the same style that you have come to love and expect from Elegancia and Generoso. So certainly we'll find opportunities to add a size when appropriate, like we did with Suma with the Toro. We did it with Timeless Prestige and Panamericana with some Petit Coronas. So there's ways to offer additional versions of existing experiences, which I think is useful. Some changes or additions in packaging, which I think can be useful. But that's really versions of a story that hopefully you already love and expect, and it just makes your experience with it easier.
100%. Like when you came out with the Secreto, a smaller Petit Corona.
So good.
So good.
So good.
So good. And it took something that I already love and just gave me one more way to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It's so good. It's so good. But that said, I'm still writing. So I'm playing with lots of blends. Like I have so many cool blends just in the hopper, but this is blending for like project inventory. So when the time is right to say, okay, I think we should do something, that's when you go back to the sketchbook and be like, you know, this one was cool, this one was cool. Let's finish that work and figure out which one we're going to bring out.
And the tobacco will be available?
Well, it's a chance you start from scratch using what you used, you recreate it as best you can, and then you springboard from there to finality.
Got it.
But nothing is completed in the book. It's all like cool, cool, cool. We'll finish it when the time is right.
Yeah, we'll keep writing songs.
We are.
Yeah, we love to hear them. Love talking about them. So great to have you.
This was awesome
today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ferio Tego.